Good morning, Americans. This is your favorite alien and Bubba here on the afternoon of Wednesday, May 12th, 2021. Sitting in for Paul Harvey this afternoon. Stand by for the rest of the story. Well, the rest of the story today is on the first vote, i.e., first election. And a lot of misconceptions that you have. And I know that Mr. Trump is out there touting that he got ripped on this election. It was a bogus election. Well, be that as it may, Mr. Trump, you're just a sore loser. That's all you are. But back to the first election here, as Mr. Harvey would have told you. Well, it was a big year, 1788, and they had a hot, sweaty summer and contentious summer, trying to get the Constitution in place at Independence Hall in Philadelphia, but they did. And as their final act to the Constitution, they said that they were going to have electors based on the Constitution, and the election of the electors would be from December 15th, 1788 to January 10th, 1789. Okay, so it was. And during the convention, or the Constitutional Convention of 1788, a group of people persuaded Mr. George Washington to come out of retirement. That's why he was the president of the convention there. And they asked him if he was completely out of retirement. And he said, yeah. And they said, would you accept the position of first president of these United States if offered to you? And he said, yes. But it wasn't a yippee yes or a no yes. It was a yeah, I would kind of a thing. Because he had service in his background. And this is what I'm saying to you Americans. People don't understand service. That's why you didn't understand George Washington or Robert E. Lee when they said service. Okay? But on to the election. So December of 1788 came around. And mind you, you had 13 states. But only 11 states could vote because 2 states were put null and void. That was North Carolina and Rhode Island. They hadn't ratified the Constitution yet, so they weren't allowed to participate in this electoral college. The other states did the electoral college. You remember that movie, Any Which Way But Loose, with Clint Eastwood? Well, that's the way they did it. You had some popular votes in some states, and that's how they, you voted for the candidate that you wanted, and that's what the electors would go over there for. Okay. And some states just told the electors, vote your conscience. There were 69 electors. Well, actually, there were more than 69, but I'll get to it in a second. So, December 15th came around and the election started. From each state, trying to collect the electors. And they did. But one state messed up. It was too late. New York, it didn't even bother to do anything. By the time it tried to do something, well, too late. So you're going to be the same way as Rhode Island and North Carolina, ineligible for electors in this round. So out of the 13 states, only 10 states would vote for president. Okay? And mind you that the 10 states there, and most people thought it was a popular acclaim. Well, it was more of civic duty, is what it was, no popular acclaim. Although the popular vote in some states can tell you that they voted for Washington. Indirectly, of course, because they were voting for electors. So, and of course, you don't understand how they did this, but they did it. Okay? So, anyway, mind you that in 1788 there was no parties. And Washington considered himself an independent. And there was terms out there like Federalist and Republicans. But they weren't a party yet. They were just terms. Alexander Hamilton and John Adams. John Adams was a Federalist. Alexander Hamilton was leaning more towards the Republicans. Well, Thomas Jefferson was kind of the behind the scenes guy here. Because, like, he told people all over the place that, yeah, Mr. Washington should win by acclaim. And there should be a northerner, probably from the state of Massachusetts. And he thought it was going to be Patrick Henry. That's who he thought it was going to be. That was going to be second and be the vice president. Well, he was surprised. He was right on the state, Massachusetts, but it turned out to be John Adams. And when the 10 votes were ended in January 10th, 1789, George Washington got 69, and Mr. John Adams got 34, so he became number 2. And according to their proclamation that they had on January January 10th of 1789. The president shall be elected 57 days after Congress convenes. Okay? So, ironically, Congress convened on March 4th, 1789. Therefore, the 57-day window started opening the clock. And on April 30th, 1789, George Washington and John Adams were inaugurated the first president and vice president of the United States. And as it turned out, they kept the same thing going for the next election, which was the first election that you had popular votes and electors and people out there campaigning. There was no such thing as federalism, although technically there was, but not until the 1796 election. But the 1792 election, George Washington maintained his independent status. He was never a Federalist, okay? John Adams, of course, was. But do you remember the thing that they said that the president shall be inaugurated 57 days after the Congress convenes? So Congress convened on January 5th. So the next election, which was George Washington and John Adams got reelected, was March 4th, 1793, 57 days after Congress convened. So from there on, it was March 4th, from 1793 to March 4th, 1933. President Roosevelt got congressional backing and moved it back to January 20th. So from 1936 to the present, that's why you have January 20th as a president inauguration. which it should have been 7 days after the Congress convened. And the Congress does convene on January 5th or 6th these days. So now, you know the rest of the story. The 3 states, 2 of them, Rhode Island and North Carolina, which occupied the portion of what is today Tennessee, did not vote because it didn't ratify the Constitution. And New York was late, so it got penalized by being left out of the 1789 election. Sitting in for Paul Harvey this afternoon, this is your favorite alien and Bubba. And now, you know the rest of the story. Good day.